Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. You know what they say, heat's in the place to back. This morning we're talking about all the heat that's happening in Tobago and how it may be affecting your pets and your livestock. And to have this conversation with me this morning, I have the privilege of sitting in studio with Dr. Todd Denoon, who is a veterinary surgeon at the Tobago Animal Hospital. Good morning, Dr. Denoon, and welcome to Tobago Updates.
Good morning, Shenell, and good morning to Tobago. Thanks for the pleasure of being here.
Right. So when we talk about the increased heat that we're seeing over the next 15 days, but more so the next 5 days, persons are trying to preserve themselves. They're trying to wear that sunscreen, dress appropriately, use the umbrellas and all of that.
Yeah.
But the conversation regarding how we secure our livestock and our pets is a very rare conversation.
Yeah.
But it's important for individuals to know that the heat does not only affect individuals, but it also affects animals. So tell us a bit about why it's important for persons to be wary of how the heat might affect their animals and how to secure the animals.
All right. Thank you very much, Shenell. And that's true. We are all in this together. Both us and our pets and our livestock are all going to be affected by the heat. So in general, what happens with heat stress or heat-related illness, that happens on a spectrum from just being very uncomfortable to really serious and even fatal consequences. So the fact that it can be fatal is the reason why I'm here, because it's not just that the animals are going to be hot and bothered and uncomfortable, but you could have actual real life-threatening causes or events happening. So what generally happens with us is when there's a sufficient amount of difference between the atmospheric temperature or the ambient temperature and our body temperature, we lose heat very easily. So we're very comfortable, but whenever that difference changes or becomes smaller, so as the environment gets hotter and closer to body temperature, that heat doesn't have anywhere to go. And if the heat doesn't have anywhere to go, it accumulates in the body. And basically what happens is whenever you have a temperature of over 32 degrees, or normal everyday sort of cooling mechanisms no longer are efficient. So above 32 degrees, evaporation is what we really need to cool down. So that is sweating. And of course, with many of our animals, they don't sweat or they don't produce as much sweat as we do. So for our dogs and cats, the main mechanism of cooling down would be panting. And when you have the combination of heat and humidity, evaporation takes a huge hit, because evaporation is the ability of that water vapor to go in, well, that water from you to go into the atmosphere. But if the atmosphere is already full of water, again, it has nowhere to go. And once that happens, you have the body temperature increasing to very dangerous levels. So you're looking at a body temperature over 40 degrees Celsius. That would be considered hyperthermic for most animals.
Okay, and so tell us, is it that we should take the hose and wet the animals down, or we should just supply them with extra amounts of water?
Actually, all to both. So as we say in medicine, whether it's human medicine or veterinary medicine, prevention is always better than cure. So during this time where you have a lot of very high ambient temperatures and very high humidity, what you should be doing is taking front. So you should be giving your animal adequate amount of shade. So if you don't have a pen, construct a pen. But you should also be adding extra amounts of water. You may even have to change water daily so that it's cooler. And you want to avoid metal containers, because of course, if you have water in a metal container, by midday, that water is hot. It's not going to help the animal to cool down, but the animal is going to be more resistant to drinking hot water. Like if you've ever drank just regular hot water, we're not talking tea, we're not talking coffee, regular hot water tastes horrible, right? It's not refreshing. So you want to at least have more water, you want to have adequate shade, and what you can do, especially for large dogs, very furry dogs, old dogs, you can even provide splash pools. You could put down tarpaulin and wet it so they have that area to cool down and all those other different things.
Right. And I don't want our viewers to take this for granted at all. I know that you're watching, but please, this is one of those areas where you really need to share the live or tag someone in the comment section just to let them know, because we have some of our most hottest days over the next 15 days and particularly over the next 5 days. You don't want persons going about with all the information, going to work, leaving the dogs outside as they usually do, without, the second thought about making sure there's water there. There are a lot of persons who have pets particularly that they're just there. They kind of treat them like strays. Because we don't have a culture of treating pets like family here in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes.
Well, from what I know in Tobago, but there are some persons who do.
Yes.
But there are persons who they just have the dogs in the yard. They're just there. They're to guard or whatever. But in a time like this, if you truly do care about the animals, you have to really take that extra step, make the extra effort to put things in place for the animals, especially if there are persons who have those livestock animals as well.
Exactly. So livestock again are often much more vulnerable because, of course, we don't have as much hands-on management of livestock. For cows and sheep and goats, etc., they're left out to graze. So for them, you want to ensure that you're putting them in places where they graze that has a lot of shade. Again, increase the amount of water that is available, and check on them periodically. All right. For those that have pens, you may want to keep them penned during the hottest time of day and manage their grazing time, especially if you don't have a pasture that has a lot of shade and trees. All right. So going back to prevention.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Because there, as you said, there are pastures that don't necessarily have the type of shade that is needed, but we know that persons have the makeshift shade with the tarpaulin. Tell us the importance of probably utilizing that type of shade during this time.
Right. So any shade is better than no shade. You're looking for any colors that are silver or white so that they can reflect heat. You want to avoid galvanized. If you do have galvanized, either paint it white or have some sort of insulation underneath it. Because what happens if you've ever been in under a galvanized roof, when that sun heats it up, that heat re-radiates and underneath it can be very hot. All right, so avoid galvanized as much as possible. Tarpaulin is good. If you have galvanized, you could put tarpaulin over the galvanized. So again, it does not get direct sun heat and it doesn't heat up, and it keeps it a lot cooler underneath.
All right, excellent. And for the persons who may not be able to, and they see that the animals are demonstrating some level of heat stress,
Right.
What type of interventions do they take at home? And at what point do they escalate it to coming in to the animal hospital?
All right, so I'm glad that you talk about that. So the first thing in being able to do any of that is to recognize the signs of heat stress and all the way up to heat stroke. So you're looking at, on the calmer end, you're looking at excessive panting and drooling beyond normal levels. You're looking at weakness, so all of those would be more like heat stress and heat exhaustion. And all the way up to heat stroke, you're looking at the animal fainting, becoming extremely weak, unable to stand, losing consciousness, and they may even vomit or have bloody diarrhea. So any of those signs, and of course, the earlier you get it, the better. So if you see your animal panting excessively and drooling and looking weak, the first thing that you need to do, no matter what stage you see the animal in, is to immediately start cooling that animal. So you want to move them to a well-ventilated area, so take them out of the sun. You want to run cool water on them, and that is really important. Not cold water, which would, I think, be your instinct, but cool water, cool running water. And you want to, if the animal is conscious enough, you want to offer them water. And again, that water should be cool, not cold, because what happens when you use cold water is that the blood vessels in the skin contract, because that's their natural reaction to cold. And when they contract, they trap in that heat. So cool water or warm water, well, cool water or regular temperature water allows the animal's blood vessels to stay open and for heat to be lost between the animal and the water that is running on the animal. So no matter the stage, you immediately want to cool the animal and then contact the vet, no matter if you see the animal collapse, because once you start cooling, you are already starting dealing with the issue. And studies have shown that animals that have been cooled at home before reaching the vet have a much higher level and rate of survival. So cool the animal, call the vet, let them know what you're seeing, and bring in the animal. If the animal, again, is showing signs of weakness, is showing signs of excessive drooling and panting, any signs of heat exhaustion should require you to bring in the animal.
Right. And there might be persons that think, okay, the vet is so expensive. I can't really afford it. Let's see what we can do here to save the animal. And if we can't, we can't. But educate the population on, some of the financial mechanisms that might be in place to treat with persons who are not able to afford, the regular standard of treatment.
All right. So, unfortunately, for many veterinary practices within Trinidad and Tobago, and I guess even internationally, veterinary medicine is not usually part of public health. So, many persons in Trinidad and Tobago are not accustomed to paying the full brunt of medical intervention. So, we go to the public hospital, we go to the health center, and many of the services are free. Unfortunately, most clinical practices or vet practices are private. So, of course, payment is often important. So once you have a pet, you should start budgeting. If you have an established relationship with your vet, you may be able to have a financial mechanism to make part payments. But again, that is up to the discretion of the vet and again, the vet-client relationship. It is unfortunate, but it is the situation in which we exist.
Right. And there are persons who have a lot of unconventional animals on their property, some possibly the ones that they are probably not supposed to have. But how do we secure things like the exotic birds and that type of thing during this time?
Right.
And the monkeys and
Right. So regardless of the species, especially once you get into exotics, if you're going into exotics, you have to do a lot of research on what those animals need. And from there, whether it's a bird, whether it's a monkey, and hopefully they are kept legally and acquired legally, because then that would be a separate non-veterinary issue
conversation.
and a conversation, right? So once you have the animal, again, for birds, make sure that they are in shaded areas, that they're in well ventilated areas, and they have access to water. Whatever the species, make sure that you know what their husbandry needs are, what their housing needs are, their nutritional needs are, etc. Because all those things are going to determine the vulnerability to heat stress. So some of the risk factors to heat stress in animals would be cardiovascular disease. So if you have hypertension, if you have heart failure, if you have respiratory diseases, if you are obese or if the animal is obese, again, fat insulates. So therefore, their ability to lose heat is going to be compromised. Those dogs with the short faces or brachycephalic breeds, so the bulldogs, the exotic bullies, etc., they are at increased risk. And of course, any animal that is sick. So any animal that has a fever or is debilitated, so the ability to move and get to cooler areas are compromised, or if they're already hot, in a hot environment, all these things allow or increase the risk for heat exhaustion. So old animals, obese animals, animals with cardiovascular disease, and animals with pre-existing comorbidities. So the healthier the animal is, whether they are exotic or if they are the standard domesticated animal, the healthier the animal is, the better they are at faring for with these hot temperatures.
All right. Well, I mean, I think you said a lot. You've given a lot of information. But before we wrap up this morning's discussion, please give us your contact information if persons do, find themselves in trouble with their animals, or if they just have animals already that they want to get checked.
Yes.
Please provide us with your contact.
All right. So we are at the Tobago Animal Hospital. Our office number is 239-7837. Our emergency number and WhatsApp number is 688-8281. So you could get us on that number outside of our working hours. And those working hours are 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, and 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. on a Saturday. So we are closed on Sundays. But again, during those hours, we have the emergency number available. So just a quick recap: provide extra water, ensure there's shade, avoid walks or any excessive activities with your pets during the warmest time of the day. And I think even during this time, avoid walks or visits to the beach or any sort of playing, because even our early morning and late evening temperatures are higher than we would expect. So for the next couple of days, batten down, cool off, and stay healthy.
Excellent. And I'm glad that you mentioned going to the beach, because I think the first thought that comes to person's mind is that, okay, it's hot, let me take the dogs to the beach to get a sea bath and cool them down. But you said don't do that.
Right. So the importance, so we've actually had a patient who has died because they went to the beach. So going to the beach, of course, is a high energy activity. Many dogs, many people are very excited. And the first instinct for a dog, once it starts getting hot, is to drink water. And the sea water is salty. That leads to dehydration, etc. So if you do go to the beach, ensure that you walk with adequate amounts of fresh, cool water available for the dogs and for you as well. So we're not taking you out of the picture, but remember, you're planning together. The entire family is going to the beach. Make sure that you keep your pets and your pets' needs in mind. So avoid the beach during the hottest time of the day. Make sure if you're going to the beach with your pet that you have fresh water and bowls for them. And of course, have fun, but be safe.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Denoon. We want to thank you for coming in this morning. We are going to take out this particular interview, and it's going to be on our Facebook page. So we want to make sure that when that is done, you come back to our Tobago Updates Facebook page and share this interview. This is information that persons need to know. And for you watching, you have been equipped with enough information to also educate others. So we know this morning you talk about the importance of having that shade, cooling down the animals, keeping them cool, not going for walks during this time, not too much playing, and how to identify signs of heat stress. So if you were a bit late on the draw, come back and watch it from the top, because we're going to pull out this interview and have it here for you to share. And I'm going to make sure and share it on my personal page as well. I hope you do as well, Dr. Denoon.
Thank you very much.
That will be at Shenell Felix, and I'm going to make sure and share it. So we want to thank you guys so much for being a part of this morning's discussion. Thank you for your likes, your shares, and your comments. And thank you for all that you have been doing to make Tobago Updates the #1 broadcaster here on the island of Tobago. Again, have a great day.
It's a brand new morning, rise up to a brand new dawning as the passion starts.